wrong hello. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Daryl. Thank you for allowing me to interview you. I just wanted to let you know that this interview may be deposited in an archive for the use of future students and scholars and may be used for any educational purposes in all forms and media, included but not limited to scholarly research and publications, library and public presentations, audio or video documentaries, and history exhibits. Do you, Lucas Darrow, hereby release, give, and convey to Dr. George Patrick Fontes and Clovis Community College, also known as SCCCD, to record and use this your oral history interview conducted by history student and scholar interviewer Vanessa Mendoza Darrow?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and age, sir.
My name is Lucas Darrell and I am age 22.
And where were you born?
I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And where do you currently reside?
I currently reside at 5152 North Barton Avenue, which is at Fresno State in the dorms.
Okay. Would you be so kind as to describe your household in your own home away from the dorm? How many people are living in your household? What are their ages, genders, and professions?
I am currently living with 3 other people in the household.
Mm-hmm.
One is my sister Jordan. She is age 20 and she is a college student. I am living with my mother, who is age 60, and she is a nurse.
Okay.
And finally, I live with my grandmother, who is currently in her 80s, and she is unemployed.
Retired.
Retired.
Okay. So this answers your question as, are there any students in your home? And the answer
would be
yes.
my sister.
Can you describe the community where you live?
My community comprises of many different ethnic groups, and their economic makeup is more likely of the middle class, with a few working class around.
Okay. And that answers my second question. What is the economic and racial makeup of your neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. When did you first learn about the coronavirus, and what were your initial reactions?
So when I learned about the coronavirus, I learned it from my mother, and I was a little bit shocked, but I took in the information quite well.
Very good. What impact did the virus and quarantine initially have on you personally during the initial months of the crisis, starting in March of 2020, either mentally, spiritually, and economically?
So during my initial time of the quarantine, I was a little bit angered because I was going to be denied my high school graduation ceremony, which was very sad for me. But in terms of my mentality and spiritually, it didn't affect that as much.
Okay. Very good. And what about economically? Was there any change economically in your household?
There was no sudden changes.
Okay. Have you or someone in your household become unemployed or laid off during the quarantine?
Before the quarantine started, I worked at the Kumon Learning Center. But once the quarantine happened, I had to be laid off out of protecting myself and my fellow coworkers.
I see. At the time of this interview, have you gone back to work?
No, I have already retired from that job since September.
But after the quarantine, where you went back to that job?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay. So you did go back to work. Would you describe any events you witnessed that capture your or your community's response to the virus? For example, a trip to the store, the school closing or a conversation with friends?
The way I saw, many of my fellow neighbors kind of decided to protect themselves and preserve it. No one was cooperating. Everyone was just looking out for themselves.
Okay. How has the quarantine affected you most closest personal relationships, either with your parents, spouse, or significant others?
During the quarantine, while it was an event that caused damage to many families, but in terms of my family, it brought us closer together and made us feel more empowered and invigorated.
Very good. So it says here, if you're a college student, how has the quarantine affected your relationship with peers and close friends?
During in college, I was able to become more focused in my work, but in terms of my peers, there was not much attention going in that direction.
So you were kind of set apart
From the other.
because you were isolated. you
Yes.
think? Okay. How has the quarantine affected your? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm repeating myself. How has the isolation, in particular, imposed by the quarantine, affected you?
Despite the quarantine's imposement, and I was able to become much more useful as a college student. I reached to new levels of heights in Booksmart that I would never have found out before, and I felt like it gave me a purpose to move forward.
Very good. Have you or anyone in your family contracted COVID?
Despite the number of people that are living here, none of us managed to contract the virus. We all stayed safe, put on our mask, and made sure to socially distance ourselves.
Very good. It doesn't say that, but were you also, did you take the vaccine when the vaccine was available to you?
Yes, I did take the vaccine when the vaccine was available to me.
Okay. How did your community respond to the virus? Did they implement any business, social, educational, financial closures or restrictions?
As I said in an earlier question, everyone was just looking out for themselves. They decided that the best way of action is just to preserve their own family and look out for them.
For their own health, yeah. What do you think, or how do you feel about the restrictions implemented by your local community?
By my local community, it did have some positive effects.
Yeah.
As many people kept social distancing and kept being proactive even while the pandemic was still harsh.
Very good. If there are any children, teenagers, or college students in your household, how has the quarantine affected them on a mental and physical level?
For my sister, who is a high school student at the time, and she in terms of physicality, she might have gained a few pounds during the pandemic, but mentally, she was still the same.
She was in good spirits still?
Yes.
Please describe what it has been like for the students in your home going to school online.
She was a little saddened that she had to do it from a computer instead of going to the brick and mortar. But she eventually adapted it in some way.
And what about you? Were you okay?
I felt more invigorated because I already took online classes even before the pandemic, so I felt felt more focused because I was limiting the number of distractions.
Very good. What challenges have arisen with online schooling?
The challenges that I had to arise in online schooling were I had to be ensure that I remember all the Zoom meetings, which was the program meant for students at the time, and ensure that I remember every last one of them to be ready for class.
And how are the students coping mentally and physically?
They coped with the situation very well, as most were very cooperative and I did not notice any significant changes in their mentality, such as any forms of panic or stress.
Very good. Okay. So you think that the students in your household and they were adhering to the rules?
Yes.
Okay. In what ways has the virus impacted your city, county, and state since the outbreak?
I believe the outbreak affected the city by making us feel more closed off from society and more staying a chance to protect themselves. In terms of our county, things did affect, like gas prices were a little bit lower, not many people were out in the streets, and in terms of our state, our governor, Gavin Newsom, tried his best to do everything he can and to protect us from the outbreak.
Very good. In what ways has the virus impacted America since the outbreak?
Since the outbreak started in March of 2020, America was divided among two different sides. One side believed that this pandemic will go away, like the flu or influenza, while the other took the matter more seriously and decided to mask up and protect themselves.
I see. How do you think the virus will impact and affect America in the long term?
Considering the fact that many believe that COVID was a fake disease made from the media, it will have long-term effects, as many people believe in some conspiracy theories that are unproven and not true, and it continues to divide us Americans.
What are your thoughts on how the government, from local to federal, has responded to the COVID outbreak?
In the terms for the local and the state, they handled the situation very well to the best of their ability, as they wanted to ensure their citizens to mask up and protect themselves. But in terms of the federal, they didn't handle it. They handled it very poorly, as the leader at that time, President Donald Trump, decided that the thing would go away by either by Easter or by summer, and by treating it as such, many lives were lost.
How have you personally adapted to the outbreak from the beginning of the quarantine in March 2020 to the present?
I believe that I quickly adapted very well, because initially I felt a little anger about missing my high school graduation and that I had to still do all. But then eventually I quickly adapted and felt more empowered than where I am now. If it weren't for the pandemic, I might have sang a different tune in life.
Okay. How has the COVID experience transformed you as a person? If you think back on your life before the crisis and who you are now, how has your life changed, or you on a personal level?
Before the pandemic, I felt I questioned almost every action I took, as I would ask others to help me. I didn't have any confidence in my abilities, despite others, including my mother, trying to invigorate and inspire me to move forward. But since the COVID pandemic happened, well, I still ask for help, but not as frequently, as I'm now more confident in my actions and have improved as a person.
What defines America during the pandemic crisis?
I believe what defines America during the pandemic is a divided nation, where one side will continue to believe in conspiracy theories and believe in nonsense, while the other will continue to believe in the truth and will continue to stay logical, informative, and respond to any crisis that we might face together.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I believe that hopefully America can be changed within and we finally have someone to unite us as a whole in this nation of ours.
Well, I want to thank you for this interview and for giving us your perspective of during the COVID pandemic.
It was an honor. Thank you for interviewing me.
Thank you very much.